So today was a hearing in front of Judge McCalla with the monitoring team, of which I'm a member, the city of Memphis, and the ACLU of Tennessee. This was the hearing following up on the second quarterly report from the monitoring team. So there was a report from the monitor, Ed Stanton, as well as some presentation. So I'm the subject matter expert on social media monitoring. I'd say the judge is particularly interested in how both different police departments across the country use social media. He also asked for more information the next time around at the next hearing on how the FBI uses social media, what policies they have in place, and also potentially other federal agencies to get kind of a global sense, in part because a lot of police departments don't have policies about social media, or if they do, they're quite minimal. They don't provide a lot of information about how officers would really use social media, what protections would be in place, what supervisory approval they'd need to get, things like that. So I think he's wondering if there's more guidance that we could draw sort of from various forums that might lay out kind of approaches to using social media. So there was a meeting with Facebook in which I was there in person because some of the Facebook, especially the policy headquarters, a lot of the policy people are in DC, which is where I am. They often have people also calling in from the West Coast for their meetings, and because the monitoring team is kind of scattered, we had members of the monitoring team calling in, and we were talking through both how law enforcement sort of might get formal access to information on the platform. There's a law enforcement portal that police officers can use to submit requests for, account information, direct messages between different users, content that wouldn't otherwise be available to somebody looking at a user's account, things like that. And then also what their policies are generally around things like, can somebody set up an account under an alias? And Facebook's policies, their community standards, have what's called a real name policy. So the idea is if you're setting up a Facebook account, it has to be under more or less your real name. You have to sort of be representing yourself as how you actually are. And what Facebook has said, and they've said this publicly, is that there's no exception for law enforcement to set up an undercover account. There isn't a way that a police officer could kind of submit a request to Facebook and ask for permission to set up an account under an alias. Their real name policy is a blanket policy that applies to all users. So the authorization of agency, as far as I understand, and this isn't an area in which I'm an expert, but that it's a way by which the police department kind of gets authorization from whether it's an employer or a private landowner to say the next time somebody shows up on my property, I want them to be, hold on, let's pause for a moment for a loud truck. And I've got another truck and then a trolley car. Okay, I think we're okay now. So as far as I understand, through an authorization of agency, whether it's a private employer or, a private property owner, would say to the police department, you have authority to arrest a particular person as soon as they come onto my property. So of course this was an issue in the litigation itself, that not only was there an authorization of agency, but that people were being added to authorization of agencies because of connections on social media, because of co-arrests, because of, having been spotted at protests together, things like that. And it appears that authorizations of agency are something that are still being used by the police department. I should say I'm not in a position right now to say that the way those AOAs are being used right now are a violation of the consent decree or a violation of the AOA process. But certainly in terms of concerns about AOAs and how kind of the police department is being delegated the authority to, whether it's keep somebody off of property, keep them out of their employment, things like that. Those are some things that we've heard about.
And certainly the judge, I think, indicated that he was open to receiving information from the public about, that would include that.
Absolutely, yep. So what the judge said at the hearing was that if anybody wants to submit information, I think he's especially interested in receiving written testimony. He didn't set out a specific mechanism, but I believe people could address matters to him. It's Judge McCullough, who's with the Federal District Court, as well as the monitoring team has an email. We have a website, memphispdmonitor.com, if I'm remembering that correctly. And so certainly any members of the public should feel free to get in touch with the team, with the monitor, Ed Stanton, to share concerns, to meet with us, and then we can also help talk about how to facilitate providing information to the court.